Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about dropdowns. So now what is a dropdown? A dropdown is an object that can be clicked to display a selection of possible buttons. The best way to sort of explain this is basically by showing you what it does. If I show you what it does, let me clear this up from the last episode, you will be familiar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, when this has finished deleting, go up to the hierarchy. Still waiting for this to delete. There we go. Right click. I'm going to, under UI, add a drop down. Now I'm not going to use a TextMesh Pro drop down. I'm just going to use the normal, the legacy one. But the TextMesh Pro drop down is the exact same concept, just for TextMesh Pro. Now that we've got this, if I was to hit play, you'll see what a drop down does. Option A, we can select option B or option C. That is a drop down, and you can add more as well. Now let's just start off by going through it. What is it? Everything like that. So let's look at the components that make the drop down first of all. So we have a label. Now the label is the text of the selected item from the drop down. So by default it's starting as option A because you wouldn't start at option B. It makes sense to start at option A. The arrow is the image that shows that the drop down can be clicked, sort of. That's how I think. It's like an indication that it can be clicked, like this little downwards arrow. If you see that, it's sort of telling you if you click this it would come down with a load more information. And the template, this is an invisible object and it's a scroll rect which acts as a template for the drop down. So if you want more information on the scroll rect, please check out the video I did on scroll views. It was a couple of videos ago, as we cover completely in entire detail what the scroll rect is there. Now obviously because this is a scroll rect, we have the viewport and the scroll bar. Once again, not going to cover them. The only thing you need to know is the item. The item is the template for the toggle of each item of the drop down. This can be edited by your liking, by changing the font, the colour, stuff like that. So if we was to quickly make this visible, don't worry about the sizing of it, it will do it all automatically. We see our item here. We could change the item background, we could change the colour of the background if we wanted. We could maybe we'll leave the check mark, but the label I'm just going to leave the same, but we could change the colour, for example, and then when we hit play, all our options have that background colour. And you can just customise with one template how each item will look. So if you do this to one, it will do it to every single one. If that makes sense. The template is duplicated with each item you define automatically and it's placed into the rect, so you don't have to manually keep adding items. We'll discuss the process of defining items shortly, but when you do add more items, more options, so option D and E, it'll automatically put them into the rect for you, so you don't need to do anything. Now let's go to the actual drop down. We've got quite a lot to cover here. I'll just quickly go over the definition of everything, maybe show you some examples, and we'll go from there. So, skipping all this because we covered it before, the template. The template is the rect transform of the template game object that's found in the drop down. So this is the rect transform of, if we open this, the template here. So we'll drag that into the template. The caption text, this is the label text that is found in the drop down. So literally the text is called label. We'll drag that in there. And the caption image. Now, let's say you've got a language selection, so you want to do a drop down between English, French, Spanish. You would and you say you wanted like the countries, maybe you wanted that country's flag next to the option. If so, then you'd add images. The item text, this is the item label text on the template item. So if we open the template, you'll see we've got item label here. We'll drag that into item text. And item image, again, that's if you've got an image that you want to use. I'm not going to go into too much detail with the whole images because that is sort of a video on its own, really, because it can get a bit confusing with adding like loads of different images to each item. So it's sort of a video on its own. If you want to see that, let me know and I can make a video on it. But for now, I'll just cover sort of all the main components of this drop down. And then if you want to see that, I can make a video on it. The value is an integer value that holds the index of the item selected. So if I was to show you this now quickly, option A, if we go, our value is 0. Option B, the value is 1. And option C, the value is 2. A is 0 again. So it sort of goes in numerical ascending order as you go down the list. And this is what you'd use in script to make different options do different things. The alpha fade speed is basically how fast the drop down fades when opening it and when selecting an item. So if I put this at a whole second, you'll see that when I open it, it takes ages to fade in, and when I select an option, it takes ages to fade out. Now, options, this is where you can define and add items to the rect, like we talked about earlier. So let's say I wanted to add an option D. I'd go for option D, and I could add a sprite to it if I wanted. Let's go for, again, images and stuff like that. This is where you can add images to your drop downs. Option E, and now if we was to hit play, we'd have 5 options. There you go, A, B, C, D, E. And you could just make these like languages, just whatever you want your drop down to be. And on value change, this is where you can assign events whenever the integer value of the drop downs change. This value we talked about up here. We've covered stuff similar to this in previous videos. So if we clicked add, we can add a script, put that on an object, put the object in, assign a function to it. All that good stuff. Anyway, I'm not going to cover script for this because we have sort of done it enough already. What you would do, so you'd make your function, maybe do a switch case or whatever, you'd make your function, as we've done in the previous videos, your method, and then you'd just do your drop down component dot value to get the value of the drop down component. I won't do an example script because I think you've done enough of those. But that is basically it for the drop down. Obviously there is more with the whole images, but I'm not going to get into them because I don't have any images prepared and I don't want to make the video longer than it needs to be. But what you could do is basically under your drop down here, so you'd have to add a caption image. So where you've got your label, your arrow, you'd add an image and assign that, like a sort of a template image or an image for option A, whatever. Actually, yeah, it'd be an image for option A. And then you'd, under your item, you'd add an item image and drag that into item image. And then for each option, you'd give that its own sprite, so then it could set those images to the sprite of that option, if that makes sense. It's not too complicated. I just don't have loads of images prepared to play around with it, and I didn't want to make the video really long by showing you like loads of examples. If you want a specific video on that, let me know, but that is the basics of it. You're just creating a couple images, assigning them to some options, and it'll do the rest for you. But I hope you found the video helpful, everyone. In the next video, we're going to cover the input field. This is the last video I have planned. I've got quite a bit to talk about with the input field, a couple of things we can play around with, and then that'll be it. So, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you did enjoy. Please leave a like and subscribe if you found it helpful, and goodbye.